Welcome to the program. You're with the Arise News in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Ahead over the next 30 minutes, all the global headlines you need to know about. I'm Folake. Adesugba. Arise News now begins. Our top stories: Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos accuses one of America's most sensationalist tabloids of trying to blackmail him over an affair and some lewd photos and texts. And a U.S. humanitarian aid consignment for Venezuela is blocked by the army at the border, with President Maduro insisting it's fake and will not be allowed into the country. Plus, officials in Rio de Janeiro have spoken of irregularities at a youth training center for Brazil's most popular football club, where a fire has killed at least 10 people. Now, Amazon.com founder and the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, is accusing the owner of a notorious American gossip magazine of trying to blackmail him over lewd pictures. He said the National Enquirer's parent company, American Media Inc., wanted him to stop investigating how they obtained his private messages to his lover, former TV host Lauren Sanchez. Well, Mr. Bezos and his wife Mackenzie announced they were divorcing only last month. The billionaire owns the Washington Post newspaper, which has been highly critical of Donald Trump, and he is accusing the president of being out to get him. Well, Chief Correspondent John Cookson reports.
This is a story involving the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, and the world's most notorious tabloid, the National Enquirer, a publication which threw massive support behind Donald Trump in his election campaign. Its publisher, David Pecker, is a close Trump associate. Last month, the National Enquirer published a story about sleazy text messages that Jeff Bezos sent to his lover, Lauren Sanchez, whilst he was still married. Bezos launched an investigation to find out how the tabloid had got hold of those text messages. Then the National Enquirer hit back, telling Bezos, "Call off your investigation or we'll publish photographs of you semi-nude that you sent to Sanchez." Bezos says that's extortion and blackmail. Bezos also owns the Washington Post, which has been highly critical of Trump and his administration. So Trump and Bezos are old sparring partners.
He bought this paper for practically nothing, and he's using that as a tool for political power against me and against other people. He's using the Washington Post for power so that the politicians in Washington don't tax Amazon like they should be taxed.
Bezos has personal wealth of at least $150 billion, rich enough to take on any adversary, including Trump. He remains committed to calling the president out.
I will say this. It is a mistake for any elected official, in my opinion. I don't think this is a very out there opinion, to attack media and journalists. I believe that it is an essential component of our democracy. There has never been, I was going to say never been an elected official who liked their headlines. I think there's probably no public figure who has ever liked their headlines. It's okay. It's part of the process. You know, if you're the president of the United States or a governor of a state or whatever, you don't take that job thinking you're not going to get scrutinized.
There are huge political ramifications to this story. Federal prosecutors gave immunity to David Pecker, remember he's the Enquirer's publisher, in connection with the $150,000 hush money payment the tabloid gave Karen McDougal, the Playboy model who claimed she had an affair with Donald Trump. And news of the deal came after Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for crimes that included facilitating the payment to McDougal and to another alleged Trump lover, porn star Stormy Daniels. Then there's the murder of Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi, given extensive coverage worldwide. A UN investigation this week officially accused Saudi Arabia of the premeditated killing. Bezos believes the Saudi Arabian regime could be out to get him, and somehow the Trump administration has a hand in that too. This story is only just starting. A tabloid classic involving sex, alleged blackmail, and the world's most powerful men. It could run and run. John Cookson, Arise News.
Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence toured the port of Baltimore, getting a first-hand look at the measures Customs and Border Protection uses to keep the country safe. Border agents showed off the non-intrusive inspection systems program technology they use to detect a variety of contraband. Pence took the opportunity to remind agents that the administration will continue to work to secure the border.
I'm here to say thank you, but also here to learn more about the work that each and every one of you do. The briefing that I just received from the senior leadership here was very impressive and a reminder of how you bring state-of-the-art technology and time-honored, tried and true methods to ensure that the commerce that flows here legally and flows here in a way that doesn't threaten the well-being of the American people. We're particularly grateful today to the men and women of CBP, DHS. You all stood tall. You stayed on your watch in the midst of that shutdown. You stayed on mission. And I want to say thank you to you and your families for standing your post and never letting down during those days. As the Congress continues to negotiate, even at this very hour, about funding our Department of Homeland Security, this very agency, and your efforts, I want to promise you, the President and I are going to continue to work tirelessly to get you the resources and the support that you need to accomplish that mission for the sake of all of the American people. The men and women of DHS know firsthand how vitally important this mission is. Now, I want to assure you that you have the support of this President and our entire administration and of the American people as you go about your task. And I want to make you a promise. I want to make you a promise that we're going to continue. We're going to continue to work to secure our border, north, south, east, and west. When it comes to our southern border, as the negotiations continue, we will not rest, we will not relent until our Customs and Border Protection have the technology, the personnel, and the barriers required to secure our border. We're going to build that wall one way or another. I promise you.
In other news, the Trump administration's peace envoy for Afghanistan says that although his talks with the Taliban have produced a tentative framework agreement, the negotiations have a long way to go to achieve peace.
After many conversations, we have reached an agreement in principle with the Taliban on a framework that would provide guarantees, an enforcement mechanism that no terrorist group, international terrorist group, or individuals would be able to use Afghanistan, the areas that they control, and should they be part of a future government, against the United States, its allies, and others. We will engage the Taliban further to flesh out these commitments that they have made. Similarly, we have agreed in principle on a framework for possible U.S. withdrawal as part of a package deal. We have a similar engagement with the Afghan government. Our hope is, our expectation is that once inter-Afghan dialogue begins, which is our key objective, that these parallel discussions will be brought together. But even if we achieve success on these two issues, we make further progress, a peace agreement would not be immediately or shortly or achieved in the foreseeable future without a comprehensive agreement on other issues. And as I've said publicly in my tweets before, nothing is agreed to until everything has been agreed to. We are in the early stages of a protracted process to end the long suffering of the Afghan people, to protect our national security interests with regard to terrorism from Afghanistan at much lower cost, to contribute through peace in Afghanistan to a change in the regional equation of South Central Asia, where our relations could improve with Pakistan and other neighboring states as a result of peace, where Afghanistan, rather than being an impediment to regional integration, could be a place where the region comes together, that facilitates regional integration, that transforms this region, particularly Central Asia. But while we are hopeful that there may be a moment of opportunity and we'll give it all that we can, we have a long way to go. What we've achieved so far is significant, but these are small, 2 or 3 small steps in a long journey.
Now, amid a missiles outbreak that has sickened more than 50 people in the Pacific Northwest, Washington lawmakers heard testimony on a bill that will remove parents' ability to claim a personal or philosophical exemption to opt their school-age children out of the combined measles, mumps and rubella vaccine. Hundreds of people opposed to the measure lined up more than an hour before the start of the hearing before the House Health Care and Wellness Committee, many wearing stickers with the bill number HB 1638.
Bodily autonomy and being able to choose freely what you want to put into your body. And that when you take away a person's freedom and medical choice, mandating vaccines for education, that is coercion, and it leads us into a totalitarian regime, taking away democracy.
I find it fascinating that vaccines is causing this big of a deal, to be quite frank with you. I look at what's going on in Europe, 82,000 cases of the measles. Are you kidding me? I've got 72 people that died a year ago and 42 the year before that, and we're sitting here discussing whether or not we should have our children vaccinated. So I believe it's very important to have our children and people vaccinated.
Do we want to be a country that forces children or parents to engage in risky medical interventions without informed consent?
Elsewhere, a French-Canadian man who shot dead 6 Muslim men in a Quebec City mosque in 2017 has been sentenced to serve 40 years in prison before being eligible for parole. Quebec Superior Court Justice François Hou called Alexandre Bissonnette's attack gratuitous and insidious as he handed down the sentence Friday. Several people in the room wept as the judge read a detailed account of the shooter's actions.
It's been a long and tough process for the victims' families. We want to salute the courage and we wish them well in the future. Since today's decision, it's a very, very long decision by Justice Rutt, we will take the opportunity to read it and see if we will or not go to appeal in this case.
At the end of the day, whether it was 25 years or 150 years, there's no sentence that I think anybody would agree would be fair. I think that nothing will bring those people who lost their lives back to the families. And that's the key thing to remember here, is that this is a wound that will never fully heal for these families. And this has caused a lot of pain, not just for the families of the victims and the people who were injured, but for the community at large.
This decision was a surprise, and we are disappointed because in the judgment, the judge was, after talking about all the atrocities that Mr. Bissonnette did in the mosque. Actually, even myself, I'm very close to the community here. I learned many things new, to the point that the policemen in the courthouse were distributing Kleenex to the people there to sweep their tears. And then the judge, with all our due respect, come with this creative idea of declaring the article of the criminal law of being unconstitutional and rewriting it instead, because we came in talking about either sequential or parallel sentences of 25, 25 or 150. He came with 25 plus 15 to make it 40. Yes, we know that's after 4 years, Mr. Bissonnette will be 67. We don't know if he will still be alive or no. We don't know if we were going to be alive or no. But the orphans, very likely these orphans will be still alive. And the debate will be open again.
Well, time for a short break now, but plenty more still ahead, including a recent reported rape case in Lagos of two men who allegedly drugged and raped a woman while filming the incident. This and more when we return.
As a fashion writer, I know how quickly trends are created and changed. In business, it's no different. To stay ahead, I needed a plan flexible enough to meet my changing communication needs. More Business 2.0 didn't just give me voice and data in one package. I got a whole lot more. With More Business, setting up my website was no problem. But I'm not just a fashion writer. I also own a home decor store before I decided to open an accessory store. With my customized More Business plan, managing my staff's communication is easy. No matter how frequently they come or they go. With 9mobile's new online self-service this week, I could adapt my plans to include this.
From 2,000 Naira, choose a business bundle, customize your staff's voice and data lines, and enjoy a variety of add-on business services. Dial *200*5# now to subscribe. More Business.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly, whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch. For easy, fast and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now in your hands. People, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Welcome back. You're watching Arise News now live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I'm Folake Adesugba. Now, Australian police have arrested 6 people after what authorities say was the largest ever single seizure of methamphetamine in the United States. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said 1,728 kilograms of the drug were seized in mid-January at the Los Angeles Long Beach Port Complex, along with smaller amounts of cocaine and heroin. The drugs were hidden in metal boxes and falsely labeled as loudspeakers. It was also the largest haul of meth or ice intercepted while bound for Australia. Authorities said this morning the joint US-Australian operation had stopped a tsunami of ice from reaching Australia.
As it turns out, we identified those drugs on the 9th of January 2019 with the assistance of Homeland Security Investigations Border Enforcement Security Task Force, HSI BEST, with the assistance of the Drug Enforcement Agency. In California, they located 1.7 tonnes of ice. This was located in 2 containers destined for Melbourne, Australia. The ice was removed from 850 electrical capacitors and the operation continued. This is the largest seizure of ice bound for Australia ever. Of special note, this is the largest seizure of ice ever located in the US of A. If this shipment had made Australian streets, it equates to something like 17 million hits of ice. We have averted a tsunami of ice to Australia. This is a serious warning. We now believe the Mexican cartels are actively targeting Australia. They've been sending smaller amounts over the years. This is now flagging the intent. Australia is now being targeted. The cartel is among one of the most powerful and violent drug trafficking syndicates in the world.
Meanwhile, the first lorries with U.S. humanitarian aid for Venezuela have arrived in the Colombian border city of Cúcuta. The vehicles are currently parked near the Tienditas Bridge, which remains blocked by Venezuelan troops. President Nicolás Maduro, who has the support of the army, is rejecting letting it into the country. Opposition leader Juan Guaido, who has declared himself interim president, is warning that many Venezuelans are in danger of dying without international aid. Many are getting increasingly desperate.
My mother died 15 days ago and they were unable to operate, and we had to find everything that was needed because even a burial here is not possible. We have to have the money because even the coffins are expensive and there is not enough money to bury the dead.
And after holding up its admission for years, Greece becomes the first nation to ratify Macedonia's membership of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, after the two states resolved a decades-old name dispute last month. NATO members signed the accord with Macedonia this week, days after the Greek parliament endorsed an agreement between Athens and Skopje that changes Macedonia's name to North Macedonia. Under NATO alliance rules, Macedonian membership now has to be approved by each member state. The dispute had frustrated Macedonian attempts to join the EU and NATO. Greece is a member of both and has veto power over other countries joining. The NATO ratification process typically takes about a year, and the United States has said it expects North Macedonia to formally join the alliance in 2020. Now, here in Nigeria, people are calling for justice for rape victims across the country. This follows a recent reported rape case in Lagos of two men who allegedly drugged and raped a woman while filming the incident. Well, Arise News correspondent Nkechi Inanna has the report.
Justice for rape in Nigeria. This hashtag has gained momentum on Twitter and other platforms. Nigerians are outraged following breaking news of two men who allegedly drugged and raped a 23-year-old girl in Lagos State and even filmed the incident. The outrage sprouted following rumors of release of the two men from police custody. 25-year-old Don Chima Enyanya George and 28-year-old Olusegun Razak were arrested in connection to the rape case, which occurred in Lancaster Hotel in Lekki.
If she was your sister, would you ever allow that kind of shit? If she was your girlfriend, would you allow that kind of shit? Yes or no? Why the fuck did you do it? You had sex with her. You let him have sex with her. Two of you on an intoxicated lady. Helpless. Helpless. Yes or no? Helpless.
According to Lagos State Police Command, the alleged perpetrators have been arraigned before the Special Offences Court. They remain remanded at Kirikiri Prison, where they await trial set for the 7th of March. This is far from an isolated incident of rape across the country. Countless cases go unreported and unreprimanded. In October 2018, there was nationwide protest following the death of 13-year-old Elizabeth Ochanya, who was serially raped by her aunt's husband and son in Benue State until she died from vesico-vaginal fistula disease. The law against rape in Nigeria is weak. It merely portrays rape as a misdemeanor, leaving victims with societal stigma. In 2018, Lagos State government disclosed that no fewer than 3,089 cases of sexual and domestic violence were reported in just 8 months. Women are now demanding better protection. The uproar surrounding these cases are propelling more women to be confident enough to report sexual assault. Nkechi Inanna for Arise News.
Absolutely horrifying. And in a similar case, also in Sierra Leone, the case of a little girl who is paralyzed after being raped by her uncle. It has led to the president to declare sexual violence a national emergency. Well, the 5-year-old, who is being kept anonymous for her safety, was paralyzed from the waist down after her 28-year-old uncle raped her a year ago, crushing her spine. President Julius Maada Bio announced the emergency amid a public outcry over the issue, triggered by a series of high-profile attacks. Her case has outraged the West African country, where reported cases of sexual and gender-based violence nearly doubled last year to more than 8,500. All right, we're going to look into sports now. Now, a fire has engulfed a dormitory at the youth team training center of one of Brazil's biggest football clubs, killing 10 people. 3 people were also injured when the fire broke out at Ninho do Urubu, the training ground of Flamengo Football Club in Rio de Janeiro. All 10 victims are said by local media to be young athletes. The cause of the fire is not yet known. Flamengo is one of Brazil's biggest and best-known clubs internationally. They currently sit at 2nd place in Brazil's Series A table and have won the league 5 times.
What I wanted to say to all of you is that we are all shocked. This is without any doubt the biggest tragedy in this club in its 123 years of history, with the loss of these 10 people. I think the most important thing right now to do is to minimize the suffering around the families that right now they're suffering a lot. What I can tell you is that from Flamengo, we are taking care of it and that we are making our best effort to try to minimize it. Flamengo is also working with authorities to clarify the reasons of this fire. We are really interested to find out what happened. Everybody here at the club are mourning for what's happening. We're really sad for what happened here. It's not easy to find out words right now. Thank you so much. Again, apologies.
Well, that's it for this edition of Arise News Now. Thank you for being a part of the program. Be sure to stay with us on the channel. I'm Folake Adesugba. From me and the whole team in Abuja and London, let's goodbye for now.